I don't care what country, is the cost of acquiring a customer. It's very expensive. And if you can't figure that out within 36 months, you go out of business, which is the fate of about 8 out of 10 companies. In a very simple format, if it costs you $10 to acquire a customer and their whole lifetime value to you is only 8, you'll go bankrupt eventually. You won't make any money. So the whole idea of launching a business is figuring out over the first 36 months, the first 3 years, what is my business model to acquire customers? And once I figure that out, then I go to investors and pour gasoline on that business model in every way I can to try and figure out how do I actually get more customers profitably. And once I know how, I invest in that. So here's where Shark Tank comes in. If you have a great product or service and you can get it on Shark Tank, around the world, 10 million people will see that for 7 to 8 to 9 minutes. What's that worth? It's priceless, because all of a sudden they've never heard of you, and now you can sell your product or service all around the world. And that's exactly how Shark Tank works. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of case studies, not only about the importance of what they do, but how they pivoted when they were shut down by the pandemic. Blueland is a very interesting business. Basically, they figured out a way to actually crystallize detergents. So instead of shipping you a very heavy bottle, which is basically water and liquid detergent in it, they only ship you a tiny little tablet. Then you take a reusable bottle, drop the tablet in it, and then you make detergent, surface cleaner, window cleaner, whatever it is. And Blueland was a Shark Tank company. When I saw it, I fell in love with it. Sarah, so many of my deals are women entrepreneurs because they're so good at managing risk. And I loved her strategy. It was a global rollout in retail distribution. She's working on her business for 2 years, getting ready to launch it, and all of a sudden, retail is shut down. Now, what does an entrepreneur do when their whole world is turned upside down? They pivot. And what Blueland did was they came and said, look, we have to let people know about this product so they can order it from us online. And they went into a very aggressive customer acquisition strategy with one of their partners, Comcast Cable, and the internet, and social media, and Facebook, and LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Instagram, in a way they would have never contemplated, explaining what this was. I even did a commercial for them. I actually sat there and shot one just so we could show it on television. And what we discovered was there are so many people that are enthralled with the idea of not throwing out plastic all around the world that sales exploded. They're ahead of forecast without any retail, zero retail. Think about that. And their margins on the product are 100%, as we talked about earlier. So they've pivoted and changed their distribution strategy completely. The Blueland product is a story about a change in an old business model. Liquid detergents bought and powdered detergents bought in retail, no more. Why waste plastic? Why waste carbon driving to the store? Why do any of that? Why not get 3 months worth of supply in small tablets and just use them that way? It's far more efficient, better for the economy, better for the environment. That's the story Blueland told, and that's exactly what consumers responded to. The deal was done. We've been very successful ever since. There's Sarah. There's a bottle of Blueland. That's she and I on the set closing the deal for the first time. We've been working together ever since. There I am shooting that commercial I talked about. Yep, I'm cleaning the toilet. I'll do anything for one of my businesses, even if I have to clean a toilet with a suit on and rubber gloves and a watch. I know it was funny, but sometimes in crazy times, it's good to always have a sense of humor. And certainly this really registered. There's the package you can see right here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's wonderful that this works so well, and we're very happy that it does. There I am finishing off the commercial. Now let's talk about case study 2. This is even more complicated. Company called Love Pop greeting cards. Love Pop is an old school business brought into the digital age. You know, everybody thought the greeting card business, which is an emotional purchase, where people say, oh, it's a birthday, or it's a holiday, or it's Mother's Day, Father's Day, or some national holiday, and I want to send a greeting card to somebody or give it to them, which is a very emotional thing. Write a note on it. Almost all of that business was sold in retail stores, in high traffic locations. When the pandemic hit, Blueland, Love Pop cards stopped selling anything in retail because they couldn't. And they went online. And they appealed to their customers with all kinds of new products, including bouquets of paper flowers, new greeting cards, trying to make that emotional connection. They didn't know if it would work. They had no idea. They increased their spend on all the social media platforms, even while all of their retail locations were shut down. And lo and behold, the response was explosive, wildly successful. The company pivoted. Now, as a result of these case studies, what occurred here, again, I made a commercial for them. We were announcing the bouquets of flowers. When the pandemic hit, the flower distribution industry shut down. COVID shut down flowers. They rotted on the shelves of warehouses all across North America, Mexico, Canada, Europe. So we made flowers out of paper. And people that wanted to give flowers to their wives and husbands and, significant others bought Love Pop flowers. And now they're a big part of the business. At the end of the day, when you think about pivoting, it's about finding another path, testing it, and seeing if it works. These commercials that were shown on social media connected in storytelling. And what I've learned about entrepreneurship in the last decade is great entrepreneurs are storytellers. So let's talk a little bit about innovation and leadership, because I think that's why we're together today. And, having invested in so many companies, so many entrepreneurs, so many businesses, I've started to realize there is a difference between innovation, entrepreneurship, success, and failure. And what are those things? So what are the common attributes of successful pitches to investors? Because many of you want to be entrepreneurs. I have seen thousands and thousands of pitches, thousands of them. And it turns out in these cases where entrepreneurs are successful, when you go in front for the first time in front of investors to ask them for capital, you'll either be successful or you won't. It's binary. And in the case of ones that are successful, it turns out there are 3 common attributes, 3 things that are always present. And if it's the only thing you remember from my presentation today, I want it to be these 3. This will help you for the rest of your life. To me, they're the definition of leadership. What's number 1? You have to be able to explain the opportunity in 90 seconds or less. Hi, I'm Sarah. I take detergents, and with proprietary technology, I crystallize them. I put them into a bottle of water, and it reconstitutes into detergent. That took me 28 seconds to explain to you. I get it. I completely get it. It turns out in life, if you can't explain where you're going, nobody will follow you there. Nobody. I don't care if you're a teacher, a politician, a mother, a father, an entrepreneur, any kind of leader. You have to explain where you want to get to in order for people to follow you. Even if you don't have 100% confidence, you have to allude it to say, we're going there and I'm going to get you there. And that's what leadership is all about. It's the ability to pull people in one direction with everybody having the same mission. And that starts with being able to articulate an opportunity in 90 seconds or less. Number 2, what is it about you that can execute this idea? After all, great ideas are a dime a dozen. There are millions of great ideas, but very few people that can execute them, that can make them happen. That's not so easy. But if you have a great idea and then you're able to explain why you can make it happen. Did you work for another company that was a competitor? Has this business been in your family for generations? Have you tried before and failed multiple times? But this time you know the mistake you made. I would much rather prefer an investor, as an investor, to invest in someone who's felt the sting of failure, who knows what it's like to fail, because that's extremely motivating for them to go out and be successful later. It humbles them in a way that makes them very, very focused. But if you can tie together a great idea with what you consider terrific executional skills, all of a sudden, the investor is intrigued. They're really intrigued. Now they're really interested. This happens on Shark Tank all the time. An idea you're not sure about, all of a sudden you understand it, and all of a sudden that entrepreneur spends 5 minutes talking about how great they are at execution. Remember, executional skills you got to explain. That takes more than 90 seconds. But when those two get combined, you can feel the whole room start to sizzle like an isotope. But there's one more. We're not finished yet. There's one more attribute that you have to understand if you're going to be successful. Imagine in the context of Shark Tank, you've beaten out 100,000 applicants. 100,000 other people wanted to be on the show. It can only air about 220. So you've made it. You're now on the carpet. The lights are on you, 26 cameras, but you're now in the zone. You pitched a fantastic idea. All the sharks want to invest because you've explained why you can execute on it. And then this happens. You have to know your numbers. How big is the market? How fast is it growing? What's the break-even analysis? How many competitors are there? When you're asked those questions, you can't delay. You have to know the answers one after the other. You have to know the numbers. Numbers are the language of business. Numbers are the language of leadership. Numbers measure performance. They are the milestones in any strategy. And you have to know them. If you get the first two right and you don't know your numbers, you deserve to burn in hell in perpetuity, and I will personally put you there. You get all three of these right, and the probability of you being financed goes up geometrically. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. It doesn't determine the outcome of the business, but it starts the journey because you get financed. Please remember these three. All of you out there, please remember them. It will be the same today, tomorrow, in 100 years. These three together are the definition of leadership. I want to talk a little bit about the lessons I've learned and continue on this theme, because Shark Tank isn't like any other reality show. It's our money. These are real entrepreneurs. They're real businesses. They don't all work out. There's trials and tribulations. With my portfolio of 50 plus companies, every day when the phone rings, I get two kinds of calls. Utter despair, something horrible has happened. And at the same time, a few minutes later, utter jubilation, something great has occurred. That is the life of an entrepreneur. Giant ups and downs. That's the nature of entrepreneurship and business. You can't know what's going to happen the next day, so you have to be ready for that wild ride. We talked about pivoting earlier, but I'm telling you the emotional drama that goes through people as they deal with the trials and tribulations. Entrepreneurship is the ultimate romantic story. I tell people, don't get emotional about business, but nobody can help doing it, because a business in the early days is like a child. You want it to succeed, and yet bad things happen, and you have to deal with it. You get kicked down, and you have to get back up. So what can we learn from this experience? Some of my greatest entrepreneurs are women. They've been very successful in how they've run businesses. I've learned a lot from them. So let me share something with you that will be very effective no matter what your career is. Your most precious asset in your life is not money. It's time. Time. You don't have an infinite amount of time. You have some time. And you have to decide what you're going to do with it, how you're going to use it. And you have many different things in your life you have to balance with your time. So effective time management is extremely important. And as you grow a business, or you manage a family, or you take care of a charity, or you're an official in government and you're leading people, or you're running an army, I don't care what you do, you have to allocate time. If people report to you in a business or even in a family, you're the matriarch, you're the patriarch, you have to ask people to allocate their time too. So let's do it in the context of a business. The most effective managers understand that they can't do everything. And as their business grows, they have to allocate tasks to people. So they say, all right, if you're going to take care of marketing, let's get together and let's set a couple of goals per week, per month, per quarter, per year. Easy milestones that we both agree on. And then let that person go do their job. Let them become the leverage of the business because you trust them. That's why you hired them. Let them go attain that goal. Don't get in their way. Let them do the work. Great managers can allocate time to people, set goals, and let them run. That's how you build a franchise. That's how you accelerate a business. You don't try and do everything yourself because you can't. Nobody has all the skills they need. And that's been proven over and over and over again. You must work in teams and you have to allocate time. This is the concept of setting achievable goals. Now, I'll tell you something I found very, very interesting. I did a study after 7 years. We had a huge portfolio of companies, and I was sitting with one of the guys that runs and my team that was running O'Leary Ventures. We have men and women there that do the job of managing the whole portfolio. And I said to my team, why is it that we have such fantastic successes and such catastrophic failures? And they're within our own family of companies. Can we find out anything here that we could share with each other? Because we've got 50 of them. Some are wildly successful and some go bankrupt. Why? Once I invest in a company, my interests are completely aligned with that of the entrepreneur. I want them to succeed. Why don't we go back and just look at the data? Because we have the numbers on every single business. Let's go see what happened. And let's pick a period of 7 years. Here's what we discovered. The managers that set very lofty goals hit them about 70% of the time. I thought that was absolutely spectacular. And their average growth assumption for their businesses were 30% a year. And the data came in that 65 to 70% of the time they hit those goals. And I thought, that's great. What's wrong with that? Or at least I thought that. Then we looked at the managers that set much lower targets. And we measured that by what they asked for in growth. And the average growth they asked for was only 15%. They hit their targets 95% of the time. And yet they were the ones that were successful in returning capital and having high cash flows and having high valuations to their business. And I thought that's ridiculous. Why? Because they're just sandbagging it. In other words, they're setting lower targets and achieving them more often. Why would that manifest itself in higher returns to investors over 7 years? Why? I need to understand that. Here's what I learned. When you set goals that your whole team consistently meets, something else happens besides just financial enumeration. People like the culture of success. They like to win. They like to be part of a team. I don't care if you're on a soccer team that wins every single championship. Do you think you want to be traded? No. You want to win that cup every time they have the contest. You want to stay part of the team. It's the same in business. If you set goals that you consistently meet, you can measure how it affects the business by a reduction in employee turnover. In the cases where we had 95% success on goals, quarter after quarter, year after year, the staff turnover was practically zero. When you don't turn over staff, you don't have any disruption in logistics and marketing and accounting, in compliance. And yet businesses that were hitting much higher growth targets, 65 to 70% of the time, had staff turnovers as high as 25%, 30%. A lot of disruption in the business. So in other words, by maintaining a culture, a lower growth culture of obtainable goals, the return on investment, because of the stabilized nature of the business, was way higher. My message to you from this data in your life is to set goals you can achieve over 90% of the time. Don't set goals you can't achieve. It doesn't help anybody, including you. It's stupid to do that. The data tells you why it works. The team culture builds in small and big companies together. This is the secret sauce of managing expectations. Now, there's something else I learned, again from a woman CEO. She said to me years ago, Kevin, I've been working with you now for 2 years. You talk a lot. You spend 2/3 of your day talking and 1/3 listening. Why don't you shut up and reverse it? Why don't you talk 1/3 of the time and listen 2/3 of the time? You'll become more powerful, more efficient. I thought, wow, is that an insult to me? Because I thought I did okay. She said, no, you don't get it. Because you're talking all the time, you're just telling your beliefs and pushing them out. You're not listening. You're not assimilating data. You're not learning anything new because you can't shut your mouth. I said, okay, let's try that. Let's try it for a few quarters. Let me consciously listen to myself and for every minute make sure that I shut down and listen. Oh my goodness, was she right? Incredible power is bestowed upon you because you understand other people's points of view and you can assimilate that data and become incredibly more effective in making decisions. In a nutshell, shut up. Listen. You'll learn a tremendous amount about things that are moving around you, about what competitors are doing, what's occurring in the world that you hadn't thought of. You change that ratio. Great leaders speak less. You listen 2/3 of the day and you talk 1/3. That's the strategy. Now, how does that manifest itself into the rules of running a business? Instead of telling customers what they want and telling them this is the best way, you listen. You listen to customers all day long. You try out new products on them and you assimilate their feedback and you're given tremendous amount of directional capacity and intelligence because you listened. Customer service is extremely powerful. I want all of my companies to score on customer service in the top quartile. Why is that? Because studies have proven, and data shows me within my own portfolio, that when you have very high customer service, you have pricing power. You can command prices as up to 15% higher, and people do not complain because they love the service. A great analogy in a very large business is the most expensive phones in the world are Apple. The most expensive laptops are Apple. They're not better. In fact, the technology in many cases is one generation behind. But people pay up because they love the customer service. The company understands that and is now one of the most valuable companies on earth. Put that in your mind when you think about entrepreneurship or you're working for a company. How do you increase your customer score in terms of service? Because that adds value in pricing power. It gives you higher sustainable margins long term. Ask any businesses at the top of their game. That's exactly how they do it. Now, let's talk about when things go bad in business. In the old days, 20 years ago, if somebody bought a defective refrigerator, I don't care if it's in India or London or the United States, doesn't matter, and it didn't work, I'm just using a refrigerator as an example. They only had one option. They could pick up the phone and call customer service and ask for a refund or ask for a new one or ask whatever it is that's going to make it right. That's not what happens today. What happens today is if they don't have an immediately good customer service experience, they go online and they go nuts. And the amount of damage they can do to you, your brand, your reputation as a business, your personal reputation is incredibly damaging. I'm constantly looking for alerts on mobile devices for all of my managers, all my products, all my services. And I have social media support for all of my companies within my own firm just to head off those disasters. When you see something going viral, you need to respond to that immediately. Let me tell you why. 80% of the time, you will not get that customer back. They're just so mad that they've gone to war with you on social media. But you're still going to do everything in your power to try and solve the problem. Why is that? Because you're creating a digital record in perpetuity. It's going to be out on the internet forever. And people are not stupid. They're going to see you doing everything you can to make it right for that customer, including your existing customers and more, and just as importantly, customers that are considering buying your product or service. They see you're a company that cares, even though you're going to lose that customer that's doing all the trouble online. Because here's a little dirty secret I'm going to tell you about, because I have the data. 1/3 of the time, when a customer is railing against you online and posting horrible things about your product or service, or even you, they're not your customer. They're your competitor acting like your customer. Think about that. Think about how powerful that is. That they would be able to do that to you incognito. And they do. So you have to be ready to take that on and do everything in your power to call them out. Because the war that goes on digitally is about protecting brand. It has been that way forever. It's very, very important. And you've got to understand it. There's no question about it. But that is the protecting and maintaining a brand in every way possible. But it's all done online now. Reputational damage. And I'll give you a great example. Think about what happened just a few years ago when a man was dragged off an airline and it was taped. Remember, everything is videoed now. Everything that happens, somebody has a phone. And if it's your product or service, and he was thrown off a plane after he was beaten up by security guards, United Airlines. It cost that airlines billions in reputational damage. Nearly cost the CEO their job. It had to change their whole culture. That will never happen again. But you don't want that to happen in your business because it goes viral like that. And it's extremely difficult to deal with. Now, I'm on a binge for financial literacy. This is not really a promotion for my books, but you can get all this stuff online. I have spent months and months and months authoring different ways of looking at life, and I certainly do that here. I've written 3 books. Luckily, they're all international bestsellers. Thank you. But my point is, if you want a resource to get more of this data, please have a look at this. I just think that life is a journey. It never ends. And your job is to allocate your time, find something you love. You know, people ask me, why do you work? I say, I love working. I love working 25 hours a day. I enjoy what we're doing right now. This is part of who I am. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love investing in them. But I've learned a lot about life in terms of what you have to do. You have to balance your time. You have to find things that are meaningful to you. And if you're an entrepreneur, you'll get yourself free one day, not about the greed of money. I always remind my students these days, entrepreneurship is not about the pursuit of money. That's the definition of greed. It has nothing to do with that. It's about the pursuit of personal freedom. The reason you spend so much time in your youth working so hard is to set yourself free later in life. Even though you'll work harder, you'll be able to work at things that matter and mean something to you and causes that you want to support. Things that are important to you during your lifetime. How do you get there? Entrepreneurship. It doesn't mean it's for everybody. It isn't. But For about a third of you that are listening, it is the journey you're going to take. And it's a wild ride. But if you're successful, you will get personal freedom that will just have you working harder, but enjoying your life even more. Now, that's sort of the formal portion of my presentation. I wanted to try and answer some questions here too. So I'm looking at all the chats going on here. This looks pretty interesting. Yeah, that's great. So let's answer some questions here. I'm getting some good reviews. Thank you very much. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, if you have some questions, ask me what they are. That'd be absolutely terrific. I don't have audio, so I'm going to try and figure that out here. All right. All right, here's one. What if you want to pursue a life in politics? Well, politics is leadership. I spent my time, a brief amount, deciding I was going to run for politics. It is a whole different ballgame. It is a complete self-sacrifice. The one thing to remember about politics, if you're going to pursue that, is that in any country you're in, because the world has many different philosophies, in most cases, countries are divisive. One party over another party, whatever. The only career you can have in life where you're guaranteed 50% of the population doesn't like you is politics. You need to have a certain skin to be able to do that. And if you can't handle that, do not become a politician. I'm talking about from a local level as a mayor all the way to a leader of a country. It is a very difficult challenge to be able to constantly reflect the slings and arrows of other politicians and people who do not agree on your leadership direction, don't agree on your policies. That's even harder than entrepreneurship in many ways. That's my advice. Be very, very careful. And by the way, you don't buy personal freedom being a politician. You buy fame, but it's a very tough life. And even after it's over, half the people that you led and governed still won't like you. Think about that. It's rather interesting. This is a great one. Is there a good time to invest and start a business? Yeah, right now. Why? It's chaos out there. It's total chaos. The world is changing so quickly. If you can find a problem that you can solve with a solution, a product or service, and there's so many problems in today's world, this is an amazing opportunity to be absolutely able to get out there and build a business. The greatest businesses ever are founded at times of complete chaos because there's so much opportunity. So for those of you considering it, now is a great time, particularly better if you're in your 20s because it's really hard work. But I love it when the whole economy is topsy-turvy globally and you come up with a great idea. That's a very good outcome. All right. Someone asked me here, please tell us about the Learning Company. That's a very interesting thing to ask about. The Learning Company was a company that provided reading and math score enhancements all around the world. It turns out in education, regardless of geography or language, the two things that countries test most often, math and reading. And so if you can help a child advance their math and reading scores at a young age, particularly in that sort of 5 to 7-year-old range in any country, in any language, they tend to be able to get into school sooner and have more successful outcomes. And that's what the Learning Company did. It was one of those companies started in my basement years ago. It grew and grew and grew. It was a global company at the end. It was bought by a toy company, actually, for $4.2 billion because kids stopped playing with toys and started playing with computers instead. And all of our software just helped them enhance math and reading. You know, I like to tell entrepreneurs, it's extremely hard to get your first success. But once you get it, you can start investing in other people too. and it gets a little easier. And that's certainly what I've done. I'm not an operator anymore. I'm an investor, but I have many, many companies, and I try and bring my experience and my social media network to support them and reduce their customer acquisition costs. All right. Oh, good question. What's my advice for students? I have an opinion on this. You know, my stepfather is Swiss, and I've grown up in Switzerland. I've been going there for 40 years, and he taught me a lot. But one thing I've learned about the Swiss, they have this amazing apprenticeship program. I don't care if you want to be a watchmaker, if you want to work for Nestle, if you want to work for a manufacturing company or a chemical company, the Swiss believe in apprenticeship. Now, some people call it internship. I like the word apprenticeship. If you're a student and you're in college or you're in school, even in grade school, in high school, and you have a passion for something, you should offer to work after school for free, for absolutely nothing, if you can get in the walls of a business that you're interested in. And the way to do that is to write the managers online no more than 3 paragraphs about what you can do to help them. Not about you, not about what school you're going to and how great your marks are and how wonderful you are. No. People want to know what you can do to help them get their job done. Succinct ways that you can help a manager achieve their goals. And once you get into an organization, maybe you only work there for 90 days for free, and they see how talented you are. They see how efficient you are. Even if you're working remotely as an apprentice, these days that's happening quite a bit, and prove yourself, your skills to listen and manage and allocate your time, that's the beginning of a career. Companies never let go good human assets, ever. But they want to try them first. They want to see what you're like. Apprenticeship, internship. Don't go out of school and start a business right out of scratch. You don't know enough. That's my opinion. Work for somebody else for at least 24 months. Figure out what it is that makes that company successful. Then jump off. Then start. It's a very important thing to learn the ropes somewhere else, particularly in a large organization where you can learn a lot. I hated working for other people, and I only did it as an apprentice intern for 2 or 3 months at a time, but it works. Then you can start your own company. Thank you for that question, because I think that's important. What inspires you the most? What I've learned in life, and something you should consider, you need balance. If you have a heart that's interested in photography or music or guitars, or you play piano, or you're a painter, great leaders, great entrepreneurs have yin and yang, the balance of life, of having something that's completely different than if you think about business, it's binary. It's very, very black and white in the sense you either make money or you lose it. It works or it doesn't. It's digital, on and off. Make money, lose money. That's not the arts. The arts are chaotic. I get my best ideas playing the guitar or developing photographs. I still do it the old-fashioned way. Or working with my watch collection. I love to collect watches. That's why I just love the Swiss in terms of their meticulous nature and building something. You don't need a watch. What do you need a watch for? The phone? It's on your phone. Anytime you want the time, you just hit it and it says it's X time and it's never wrong. Why would you wear a watch? Because it's art. Somebody had to work to create that piece of art. And that is what's so interesting. Each style is different. I have a massive watch collection. But my whole point is you need balance in your life. That makes you very, very successful. It motivates me to stay balanced, and you should try it. It's very important. Which sectors do you think are going to be successful? Great question. There are some fantastic questions here. You guys really have it going here. By the way, I love this platform. Absolutely spectacular. All right. There's many questions about sectoral investment. Sectors, there's basically, if we take the S&P 500, the largest index in the world, there are 11 sectors. At any one time, like energy is a sector, technology is a sector, real estate's a sector, utilities, that kind of thing. What I think is going to happen to the world is The sectors that are going to do poorly for a while are going to be real estate. And we talked a lot about that earlier, how people are going to reduce their need for it. You know, companies have been shutting down retail locations and going online. That's been going on for 10 years, but it's accelerating very quickly now. So I'd rather take my money out of real estate, which I've done. I've reduced it from a 30% weighting down to 8%. And the sector that I really love is technology. Any company that is enabling the digital 2.0 global economy. That could be a Zoom, and that could be this platform at the Unacademy, that could be Wix.com, that could be Amazon, Alibaba, JD.com, Tencent. These are Asian, American, European companies that are digitizing the economy. I invest in all of those, no question about it. But I really like healthcare. I really like healthcare. I like pharmaceuticals. I like medical supplies. I like hazmat material manufacturing. Every country is going to have a healthcare protocol after having gone through what they went through over the last 5 months. It will become a national mandate for every country. If you're in India, healthcare is going to be big. If you're in the United States, it's going to be big. England's going to be big. If you're in Cambodia, it's going to be big. I don't care where you are. Healthcare is going to be a national policy in a way it's never been before. I think a lot of the outsourcing will stop. I think each country will want to be able to make, if they can, their own pharmaceuticals, their own masks, for example. I don't think we're going to rid ourselves of pandemics and flus forever. It's going to be a conscious on everybody, but I love that sector. For jobs, I love it. I love it for investors, and I like it for health. It all makes sense, and there's so much advancement. I'm conscious of the time here. Here's one. Do you have any hobbies? Well, it goes to this whole thing of yin and yang. I have hobbies. I'll tell you what they are. I'm in the wine business. I love to sell and make wine. I just love it. You got to be careful how much you drink of it, but I love wine, and I have a very big wine business. I've got cellars all around the world, and I sell the O'Leary fine wines direct to customers. I love doing that. I'm a huge watch collector. I love talking to the CEOs of watch companies all around the world, and I do, because they know I'm a huge collector, and talk about what's next, what the dials look like. And if you watch Shark Tank, you will always see I have a different watch on, always with the red band, but it's a different watch. This season, I'm picking 8 different watches. You'll see them. You're going to be remarkable. These are really remarkable pieces. I'm working with Wardrobe on that. I love to play guitar and record music. These are all different passions. And I love photography. And those are the things that keep me busy when I'm not working, and they keep the balance in life. So I think it's important to have some hobbies. It's very bad if you don't have another hobby except work. That's terrible. All right. Oh, this is a good one. I always get in trouble on this one. What is the best profession to pursue in college or post-secondary? Well, or in even high school, if you think about it. Number 1 is engineering. Number 2, well, that's engineering. Number 3, engineering. And if there was a 4, it would be engineering. If you want a job, be an engineer. Now, I realize not everybody can be an engineer, but the world is screaming for engineering, from robotics to chemical to mechanical, you name it. Software engineers make things. They create and create products and services that solve huge problems all around the world. Now, look, am I biased? I am not an engineer. I wasn't good enough in math to do it. If you have high math scores, it's a fantastic place to go. You know, you almost need a perfect math score to get into some of the best engineering schools around the world now, but it's a fantastic profession. A very interesting one, too. Oh,